3 days ago, my wife's phone, conspicuously left on the kitchen counter, displayed a notification from a contact named Megan's Planner. Given that her name is Megan and she doesn't use a planner, this was odd. The message read, "Looking forward to Tuesday. Wear the blue dress." I scrutinized her phone and found weeks of messages between my wife and a man named Connor, a pharmaceutical rep who serviced her dental clinic. By week 2, he was addressing her as Babe. By week 3, they were arranging meetings outside work. After reading everything, I returned her phone to its original spot. The following morning before going to work, I consulted a divorce attorney. It was now Thursday night. We sat down for dinner. Danny was idly moving his macaroni around his plate while my wife, under the table, clandestinely texted someone. I paused, set my fork aside, and met her gaze squarely. "Suggest to him that you're available this Friday," she hesitated. "You mean the person you text daily?" I replied. "Propose Friday as an option then." She shook her head. "I don't understand your intentions." "It's my calendar," I said, amused by her nickname for Connor. A charming name for a man named Connor. She didn't dispute it. No apologies followed. Her gaze hardened, moving from surprise to something icy. A feeling of self-reproach darkened her eyes. Strategy was evidently brewing in her mind. I cleaned up the dishes, put Danny to bed, read him his dinosaur story until he fell asleep, lingered in his room a bit longer than usual. He was 6 and still believed both parents would be present at every birthday from now on. Returning downstairs, Megan was there, arms folded, not weeping. "Prepared," she confronted me first. "You invaded my privacy. You left your phone unattended with the screen active," I countered. "That doesn't grant you that liberty," I intervened. "And Connor doesn't give you permission to deceive me for 3 weeks." She spoke softly. "Gentle indeed. Just work, just a flirt," you said. I repeated your message back to you. "Can't wait until Tuesday. Wear the blue dress." "You consider that flirting?" She fell silent, then played her final card. "Perhaps if you spoke to me more often, I wouldn't have to." "Finished that sentence," I replied. "She didn't. I wanted to say more," I confessed. A list of instances was waiting in my mind, every time she retired early, every time she turned her phone away. But should I start enumerating, my voice would falter. This morning, I contacted a lawyer before our dinner before this discussion. She snatched her phone and headed to the bedroom. Beyond the door, her voice echoed low, fast, urgent. Not her mother's. This call was hushed. Someone she wanted to keep secret from me. My error was granting her the night. I thought by morning we would have a genuine talk terms, timeline, Danny. I settled in the guest room and set an alarm for 5:30. By the time I poured coffee, Megan was already dressed and prepared for the day. She smiled at Danny, packed his lunch, and gave me a casual goodbye kiss as if nothing had transpired. A part of me wished it were genuine. Another part observed her actions and wondered, perhaps she has truly moved on. I stood there with my coffee, almost convinced. But then I recalled Connor's message about the blue dress and the feeling dissipated. I phoned Marcus from the truck to share the news. He responded promptly. "She's strategizing. She called him last night and they are concocting a plan. You gave her a chance to escape." At noon, I received a text from Megan proposing we talk that night over dinner, stating she wanted to clarify everything. I typed "okay," paused for 10 seconds, then deleted it. She wasn't seeking an explanation, she was seeking a rewrite. Instead, I contacted my attorney's office and requested them to expedite the process. I needed the petition ready by morning. After work, I drove home. Drove onto our street, spotted an unrecognized car, a gray sedan with out-of-state plates parked 3 houses away. As I parked in my driveway, the sedan rolled off without activating its headlights. Entering through the front door, I was greeted by a kitchen aroma of garlic and rosemary. A set of balls lay on the table with 2 place settings and wine poured. Megan stood near the stove in a blue dress, the one Connor asked her to wear. She smiled at me, invited me to sit down, and said, "I ended it today." After calling him, she declared it was over. "You were right," she admitted. "I was foolish. I want to make things right." Instead of drinking wine, I chose water. For 5 minutes, she spoke about the lack of physical involvement, her entanglement in the attention, and how she had already severed ties with him. Each sentence sounded as though it had been practiced. When she finished speaking, I requested, "Show me." "Show me what?" She inquired. "The call," I responded. "Your phone, show me the last outgoing call." She hesitated, but eventually displayed her call history and turned the screen toward me. One call prior was to her mother. Earlier, she had contacted a planner named Megan. Duration, 2 minutes. I observed her. That's how long it took for 3 weeks to conclude. She remarked, "I said all that needed to be said." I acknowledged with a nod. Then I retrieved my phone, pulled out the number from her messages, and dialed it, placed it on speaker, and set it in the center of the table between the candles. 3 rings, a male voice responded. "Hey, baby, you okay? He's not around, right?" Megan tried to grab my phone. I held onto it, keeping it out of her reach. Connor continued talking on the speaker. As instructed, just pack a bag. I've got space at my place. We discussed this. I didn't utter the prepared response I'd practiced in the truck. Instead, a flat, almost disinterested tone escaped me. I said, she won't need to pack. A pause on the other end followed. Then Connor's voice altered now. Who is this? The husband, I replied. He terminated the call. Megan remained in our kitchen center. Candles fluttering, the blue dress, the dinner she'd prepared to persuade a brief phone call into a breakup, and Connor had just addressed her as babe, instructed her to gather belongings, claiming they'd discussed it. I pushed my chair away and stood up. My hands were trembling, so I jammed them in my pockets. You heard him, I said. He made space. She attempted to argue. You can't just. I'm not doing anything, Megan. He invited you. Go. I strode towards the hallway, snatched my coat from the hook, and reached into the inner pocket. The envelope had been there since 3:00, retrieved from the attorney during lunch break. While she was lighting candles, I was signing divorce documents in a parking lot. I returned to the kitchen with it and placed it on the table next to the flowers. Megan opened the envelope. Her gaze darted swiftly across the first page. You filed, she said, before we even talked. We discussed it yesterday, I replied. You deceived me twice. It was a petition for divorce. That morning, the documents were submitted with my signature pre-affixed. No deliberation regarding the house, no child custody arrangement was proposed. My initial action was a gamble, filing first in an attempt to establish terms, but simultaneously without negotiations or protection. I anticipated concluding the matter. Instead, it sparked a fresh discourse. Megan set the papers aside. The remorse visibly vanished from her face, straightening up as if donning armor. All right, she stated. Want the house, and Danny remains with me. I responded. Danny will stay here. She moved closer. You work 12-hour shifts. Who fetches him from school? Who prepares his dinner? Who puts him to sleep on nights you're repairing a pipe at 9 p.m.? That statement resonated. My mouth gaped open, but no constructive response emerged. She was right about the work hours and the pickups. I had been so fixated on the petition that I hadn't considered its implications beyond the signature. She collected her bag and walked towards the front door. She spun on the porch and declared, I'll secure separate legal representation by dawn. I remained at the window as I watched her stride towards the end of the block where a running gray sedan waited. She hopped in and the car departed. Danny inquired about Mom during breakfast, to which I replied she was with a friend. He nodded and resumed eating cereal. I delivered him to school late, arriving at work even later. My phone rang prior to unpacking my toolbox. It was my lawyer. Megan's attorney had filed a retort, hostile home environment, accusing me of dominance, aggression, forcing her out. I've never raised my voice, I stated. Irrelevant, he informed me. She left that night. That's the picture being painted by her side. I ended the call and reached Marcus. He provided only one suggestion. My cousin Derek, a family attorney in Columbus, skilled in his field. Contact him. I phoned Derek later that day. His first question was about any evidence I possessed. You informed him about the screenshots and the speakerphone conversation where Connor stated, pack a bag, dear, in the presence of Megan. He argued that her claim would be invalid if she was leaving with another man. Later, he asked what else I had. I told him my 6-year-old was in the adjacent room during that call. After a moment's pause, he said, we don't involve children. However, the court will take note of her allowing such a situation to unfold under her roof with a minor, which may work against her. Following our conversation, I drove to Megan's dental clinic, crossed the street, and observed the front door for 20 minutes. Then I started my engine and departed. I wasn't sure what I was hoping to see. As Derek instructed, I spent 2 days merely being a father. Work, school pickup, homework, dinner of grilled cheese, bedtime story, lights out by 8:30. No chaos, just routine. The third morning, my phone rang at 7:15. It was Linda, Megan's mother. Is Megan staying with you? She inquired. Danny says you were aggressive. Linda was instructed to query her daughter about her recent whereabouts, mentioning a gray sedan and a pharmaceutical representative named Connor who often visits her clinic. Linda questioned Linda's motives, to which I responded with the truth. I had witnessed Linda getting into Connor's car on the night she left. Linda confirmed that she was aware of my revelation. Afterward, I received a text from Megan, her first contact in 3 days, simply stating, my mom knows everything. I prepared Danny's lunch for the next day and left the phone on the counter. Megan desired a getaway. I chose the location, a coffee shop on Broad Street in the heart of the afternoon. She was seated when I arrived. With no makeup, her hair pulled back, dark circles under her eyes hinted at sleepless nights. Following our departure that evening, she admitted she went to Connor's. She stared at the table instead of me. She spent 2 days there and later claimed she'd been truthful about her whereabouts the whole time. However, my mother discovered she had lied about that as well, exposing it yesterday. This was the sequence of events. First Connor's, then Linda's, and finally nowhere. She stated, "I am withdrawing my claim for a hostile environment." I remained silent. "Shared custody 50-50, she continued. "I won't lose my son," I responded. "You won't lose him, you'll share him." The house I had been contemplating for 2 days suggests that Danny keeps it, his room, the yard, and his bus stop. I promised to find another place. Her eyes blinked. "You would give up the house," I corrected. "I am giving it to Danny. You just happen to reside there." I stood, buttoned my jacket, and added through attorneys in writing. On Friday, I ventured out to the parking lot. Her gray sedan wasn't there. She had arrived alone. Upon rising, I found a crumpled taxi receipt on the table. I got in my truck and sat for a moment before starting the engine, driving to fetch Danny. As he climbed into the vehicle and buckled up, we drove in silence for a while. Afterward, from the passenger seat came a small voice. "Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced?" I pulled over and turned to face him. "Yes, son," I replied. His gaze dropped to his shoes for a while before he asked again, "Is it because of the man in the gray car?" My heart sank. That wasn't part of the plan. "What man?" he inquired. "The one who was waiting for Mom in the car she entered when she left," Danny explained. "I had observed her from my window earlier, Megan leaving and getting into Connor's sedan at the end of the block. It seemed that my son, apparently asleep, had been watching too. He asked, 'Is Mom coming back?' I assured him, 'Mom loves you. You'll see her every week.' He hesitated, then inquired, 'Are you sad?' I was tempted to lie. 'Indeed, I will be all right, and so will you.' He kept his hand on my arm until I returned to the road. In the evening following Danny's bedtime, Marcus phoned. 'Your partner's ex-boyfriend has updated his LinkedIn profile,' he mentioned. 'A fresh company in a new city, Raleigh, moved last week. Connor had left. He packed up as soon as matters became serious.' I glanced at the refrigerator calendar. The date for signing the separation agreement was set for Friday. The attorney's office, a tiny conference room with a table and questionable coffee. Megan sat opposite me, her lawyer beside her, mine next to me. We signed an accord, shared custody of 50%. The house went to Megan. My share paid in installments over the course of 18 months. Danny's school remained the same. I signed first, she followed. No handshakes were exchanged. On the sidewalk, Megan caught up with me. In essence, she said, 'I apologize for everything.' I paused. Her sincerity was clear. The event was devoid of any action, merely a woman expressing something she should have expressed 2 weeks ago. I remarked, 'You know what's been on my mind? That Friday you kept free. I had already contacted the lawyer that morning. The petition was in my coat while you were lighting candles.' She looked at me in disbelief. 'Yes, you orchestrated the entire thing.' 'No,' I said. 'I merely stopped feigning ignorance.' I walked to the truck and made 2 calls. First, to a landlord on Maple Street about a 2-bedroom apartment. I told him I would move in tomorrow. Second, to my foreman Ray about the Henderson job for Monday. I'd be there by 8. Then I drove to Danny's school. He bounded across the pickup lane with his backpack swinging. 'New apartment tomorrow?' he asked excitedly, climbing in. 'Can I have the room with the big window? It's yours.' He turned on the radio and selected a station playing an unfamiliar song. He hummed along as his feet swung above the floor mat. I shifted the truck into gear.